G'day everyone, this is Rangadad. Not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. Um, wow, didn't really expect a red vector candle today. Um, Obviously, we pointed out that downside was more likely on stocks and stuff, and I did think we'd have a red day on Bitcoin, but did not think it'd be a bearish engulfing vector candle. This basically suggests more downside, and probably a reasonable amount of it, to be honest, over the next week or so. It has rejected some pretty interesting trend lines and things. So there was a bit of a trend line through here. Obviously, we didn't even really tap into that, depending on where you wanted to draw it. But you know, that's a failure of a recovery run. Stochastic momentum looks pretty nasty. That's a big flip around. And BBWP is still above that signal line. So, man, if we continue this to the downside, what I would expect here, this has been such a quick and such a brutal sell-off. I'd expect something similar to this. So a wick to the upside and then continuation to the downside. So probably a retest of this value area high, which is also the previous resistance level. So if you are thinking of selling now, you may get a slightly better price if you wait partway through the day. But generally, I'm expecting it to come back down into at least the 87, 88 sort of region that we were sort of considering around here. And the reason for that target, one, it's just it's had a lot of liquidity there for a while, but to come into pivots. And this is one of the reasons why we may get a bounce sooner rather than later is you've got the pivot levels in here as well. So typically you don't just blast straight through pivot levels. You will bounce off one of them. But there is a key monthly pivot at 86,500. Even the middle of the previous month's pivot is just above that, 87,800. So 87,700, something around there. And obviously we got sort of the bottom. Typically that first pullback, that first vector pullback does attract price if you're going into a consolidation area. Whether we break that or not, I don't know that we will on this pullback. It depends how long this lasts, and I don't know that it's going to last long enough for us to come too much further down. I mean, your 30% from the high would be back into this region here, which had a little bit of action around the 75.5. That's potential. Bitcoin has done that in previous bull markets. The question at the moment is this all it's going to do? Like, was that the high for Bitcoin in this cycle? Don't think so at the moment. There are some things that suggest maybe, but I'm not getting a strong enough signal from them yet. So, all right, let's get into this analysis a little bit more. So yeah, strong moves straight through those regions is not a good sign for Bitcoin. Little sign of a potential pickup here. The move is slowing down. Just looking at it on the 15-minute. that 100K level is probably going to be where you want to be selling, maybe a little bit before that even. I think the 100K level is probably going to have a fair bit of resistance once it gets back up there, but I am expecting a little bit of a bounce here. Yeah, this is definitely postured to the downside at this stage on the 15-minute. Quick look at the 1 hour as well. So, yeah, still a bit of momentum to the downside on the 1 hour, but typically with this indicator that you don't stay below that third standard deviation for very long without some sort of bounce. So key levels, like, yeah, 1,500 might suck some people back in, but I don't think it'll last past that for very long. Like, I'm talking intraday. Like, you may get a bounce, not necessarily before the close today. You may get it like 1 or 2 hours up just to bring it back in here a little bit, and then through the day I would expect it to come up and then pull back again. The pullback may be the following day, but we'll have to wait and see. This is a decent area for it to pull back into. Fair bit of volume in this area, but again, it's kind of hard to tell before we close this daily. If we close the daily above the point of control, then there's a small chance this is just a fake out and it will continue higher. And we may get something like this. But at this stage, if I saw a vector candle reversal like this with a closure below the wick of the first vector candle, then I'd be leaning to downside. Other examples of that, like this sort of thing here, happened over a longer period, but went more to the downside. Generally, red vector engulfing candles at the peak lead to more downside. It's I don't remember seeing ones that lead to reversals. See how this one here actually closed above the open of the previous candle. That's not as bearish, obviously. It ran up, but this is an example of where it did actually go back up, but didn't really make any new progress. So yeah, doesn't look great, to be honest. I guess there are some examples. There's probably your best comparison if you're a bull, is to look at that and go, okay, could still go up, but was nowhere near as strong a vector to the upside either. Yeah. All right. I think the key thing here is we have rejected that level. There is a horizontal support level in here at about 92K as well, which is basically the value area low. It could just come into that and then have another bounce, another try to the upside. I'm quite surprised we didn't hit the 105 or 104 level. 102, 700 didn't really have much there in terms of liquidity. So that's a little surprising. Yeah, I think tomorrow is going to be a pretty critical day. If we get continuation to the downside and BBWP jumps up again, then that could actually lead to a pretty decent sell. I would expect somewhere around the 85 to 87 mark if that happens over the next few days. All right. Ethereum's holding up okay, so it seems to be finding some support at the point of control. it was a fairly big volume area, but if Bitcoin keeps going and the stochastic momentum's, if it closes somewhere around here, has already crossed to the downside out of the bullish control zone. BBWP is still high, so you'd expect this to come back down at least into the wick here at 3100, maybe a little bit lower. Move down into just below 3000 would freak a lot of people out. It would take out a lot of stop losses that are sitting below here, so that's potentially something to look out for as well. I wouldn't call crypto done at that stage, but this is looking more like a distribution than it is an accumulation at this particular point in time. Have a quick look at Sol as well. So Sol hasn't been able to get past that point of control, and it looks like it wants to at least recover this vector candle here. That's a pretty nasty looking lower high as well. I was having a look on the weekly timeframes yesterday, and yeah, that's not going to look great for Sol if we keep coming down and finish the week somewhere down here. Yeah, wouldn't look pretty. You'd kind of expect Sol to come back down to 158 even. Which you got to be asking the question where, what's crypto going to do from there? One thing I'm paying a bit of attention to at the moment is what's potentially going to happen when Donald Trump comes in, and it sounds like he's actually way more prepared than he was first time around, which I think is actually going to be a good thing. I think the market at the moment is reacting to some of the economic pressures that there are out there. The fact that Nvidia dropped from that high yesterday and dropped in a big way. So it actually made a new all-time high, but not on the close. That, to me, is suggesting that there's going to be a lot of sell the news events, but I think Trump's inauguration is probably going to be a buy the event, just because markets hate uncertainty, and this is probably the most uncertain time at the moment before he actually comes in to office. It's not a bad thing that Nvidia is leaving a big vector candle here again. We recovered this one that it left previously. I think we will do the same. This is kind of looking like a potential accumulation, Wyckoff accumulation. It just means the next few weeks it's probably going to be a bit choppy. Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm not seeing any reasons why the market would just bounce here and go to more highs. In fact, there's probably more reasons why it should go a bit lower. One of them being, we've basically rejected that trend line. It's not a strong trend line yet. It's only had one touch on it before that. But it is there on both the NAS and the S&P 500. This is Trendline City, this chart, but that's a key trend line to actually get above. I'm gonna remove that. That's not matter anymore. Even this one here doesn't matter. So yeah, obviously people are going to be looking at this as still like a head and shoulders. I'm probably looking at this more as a potential range at the moment. I do think it'll sweep and close this gap. I don't necessarily think the head and shoulders will actually play out um, to its sort of full measured move kind of area. It very well could, like that 56.50 sort of area is going to be um, an interesting level, which would play out the measured move. I just don't know that it'll happen straight away. I think we'll probably get bounces along the way, something like potentially this, and it'll just sort of slowly come down. If it doesn't, the other thing, if this is more of an accumulation at the top here, what you can find is maybe not this go, but it will actually come down relatively quickly to that point and then bounce off it. That would be, can't remember what they call it with the Wyckoff accumulation, but it's basically a fake out to the downside. And then we come back into this range and sort of what you want to see is the break of this level and a retest to the upside. And you're looking somewhere in February for this to all play out. If you're going to see more bullishness this year. And again, I think we will. It's hard to predict the future, but I think once actually the political scene settles down, once Trump gets in, if it settles down, like we're seeing, it's political upheaval across the world at the moment. Canadian government and all that sort of stuff is capitulating. It's going to be a choppy year, I think. So we still, the advanced decline line, it has come back down, unfortunately. And I think it'll probably just bounce sideways and up here. And if this keeps going up as prices coming down, it is a good sign that that there are still buyers there. The big guys still think the market is going to go up. Just have a quick look. Another read on Sentiment Trader. Yeah, the big guys are still interested. Haven't really started dropping off yet. Retail's had a bit of a bounce. I think they'll probably roll over again. But in terms of sentiment and what smart money's doing, I think this is a really good sign. You want smart money buying it up as it's dropping or going sideways. But yeah, a 10% drop on the market is something we've been considering for a while here as likely. Come back to that in a sec. So the equal weights, they're the things that I'm probably going to pay a bit more attention to just because they did signal what was happening well before the actual market did. And technically, they're kind of, wouldn't say they're super bullish, but it looks like they're basing more than the rest of the market at the moment. So a break above these levels, 170, 178-ish is probably what you're looking at as confirmation that we are going to go higher. And at the moment, obviously, it doesn't really look like that. IWM, same sort of deal. It looks like it's just ranging and just accumulating in this area. You kind of want BBWP to increase as we get another break to the upside here. You don't want to see stochastic momentum resetting and we're still in this range at the same time BBWP is resetting. So that's something to keep in mind there. The skew's actually been a pretty good read the last few days as to what's going to happen following day. So just keep an eye on that. It doesn't give a read by the time I do these, but uh, it does give a read after the close. XLY XLP is still high. Obviously, if this just ranges here and then breaks to the upside, then it's probably going to be a pretty insane run. And the weird thing is the equal weight is still really high. This is still looking bullish. So in general, you would say, okay, more upside is to be expected at some stage after this correction. But when you come and look at these things on their own, they're looking pretty nasty. Like if we break these levels, then you're talking pretty major corrections on the cards. But typically, yeah, I wouldn't expect us to come down that hard before a bounce, just based on what everything else we're seeing. I think if we do see a turnaround in these, particularly a stochastic momentum breaking out of the bearish control zone, I think that will be a turning point for the markets, and we're not seeing that yet. So, yeah, I think potentially a bit more downside on the markets yet. Same thing with consumer discretionary. It's holding up a hell of a lot better though, which is a little surprising, given the consumer is the one that seems to be struggling the most at the moment. But that is looking like head and shoulders there as well. So if that does play out, it'll bring it back down into the just high 49s, I'd say. But again, it looks like it's potentially breaking out of that bearish control zone as well. These are two things I'm going to keep a bit of an eye on. They're going to be decent indicators that the market will actually go up. Home builders is making new lows again. It looks like it wants to close that gap. And yeah, that's the critical level for home builders. If it just falls straight through this level, then I suspect there's going to be a bigger pullback on the market. But at this stage, a pullback a little bit more and then a bounce is still on the cards here. And as I've said before, if we make a gigantic head and shoulders here, not many people will probably mention this. And that, if we make a lower high here, then it's time to probably get out of the market, I'd say. Go into cash or bearish ETFs, things like that. Yeah, same with, sorry, that was home builders, that was home construction, I think. Yeah, same deal with both. Semiconductors. So, whoops. Semiconductors is failing that breakout, unfortunately. It's not looking super strong. We've got two key levels on semiconductors. One's going to be probably around there, and another one is, looks like it's about there, maybe a little lower. Confirm break either way, and that'll give you an idea of where the economy's going, or where the, sorry, not the economy. We know where the economy's going overall, but where the stock market itself is going. Semis has been a pretty big driver of this run. Some AI stocks have got some bidding, and what's the other sector? I'll think of it later, but there's a couple of sectors that are probably going to be the bubble sectors that'll drive the blow off top. Yeah, think of it later. DJI Gold is still suggesting further weakness, just still on a downward trajectory from that break of this previous level and even that level. Again, we kind of want to see this really tick up with some fortitude. This is kind of a key level for DJT Gold as well. So transportation index is a pretty good indicator of what's going to happen, particularly versus gold. And it looks like it's finding a little bit of strength here. It's broken out of that bearish control zone. You want to see BBWP pick up reasonably quickly and a bit of a bounce in this, which probably means that gold should be seeing some choppiness, I would say. This is kind of what we want to see. We want to see DJT actually bounce from here, put in a nice double bottom, momentum continue to the upside as BBWP ticks up out of the reset. That would be a really good sign as well. DJI is looking a little sicker. It doesn't look great. So that's a completely different read as far as I'm concerned. As I've been saying, this is looking like a fairly choppy market this year. It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be short-term traders are probably going to make the most money this year, and long-term traders probably swing traders are probably going to struggle a little compared to previous years. The VIX is spiking a little too, which again, probably we do have a couple more down days. You expect the VIX to come up a bit. Something around the 20 to even 30 mark on the VIX would probably be a good point for the market to bounce. Skew. So yeah, skew got crushed again yesterday. And lo and behold, we had a down day today. So I'll be looking for this read after the close just to see where we're at. You want to see a bounce on skew as well, I think. Interestingly, the DAX is still pushing forward. I think it probably will retest this trend line here, at least the high here. If it does that and rejects off it, it's probably going to lead DAX to come back down into this trend line, I would think. HSI is having another down day. We have got an uptick on BBWP there, which isn't great for Chinese market. The Hang Seng, as I mentioned the other day, potentially could come into 1800. I mean, this has all the hallmarks of a downtrend at the moment. Probably into there, and then another bounce. Potentially down back into this level. The only thing that will really reverse that is going to be Trump's inauguration, and he's not. Things don't look as bad for China as what people are probably thinking at the moment. Yeah, the FTSE's holding up okay, but Japanese market's kind of really sketchy at the moment, actually. There's no real read either way on the Japanese market. If anything, I'd probably suggest it's coming back down to the 200 EMA. TLT, so TLT's broken down again. Like, As I mentioned yesterday, coming into that $85 mark, it'd probably go a bit lower. But yeah, TLT is struggling, which is a little surprising, but the high yield junk has just confirmed a rejection of that level. I did think it'd get up and close that gap. I mean, this doesn't have to close gaps. And in fact, this one here, the gap, start of the gap was resistance a couple of times after that. So high yield junk is not looking great, which doesn't look great for the market overall. What you want to do is, if it does come back down, it holds this trend line. If we're breaking below that trend line, then whatever bounce we get on stocks is probably going to be a dead cat bounce. And probably the same for Bitcoin, to be honest. Bitcoin's risk on. The bond market is suggesting they are risk off at the moment. This bond indicator is still pulling back as well. As I mentioned yesterday, we kind of want to see this one turn around, and that should see a turnaround in the markets. Somewhere around that 200 EMA is going to be a pretty good level for it. There's a bit of support for it around there. A lot of volume, or a lot of I guess support from this area here. So again, another couple of days down, maybe a green Thursday, Friday, if you're lucky. Big time uninversions, which is, I guess, good for the bears. Typically, the further these get uninverted, the closer you are to the recession. So the 2-year hasn't bounced a hell of a lot. In fact, it looks like it is turning around to the upside, but hasn't cleared these previous highs here. The 10-year, though, is going back to key levels. So I think 4.71 is probably going to be a pretty key level for this. Obviously, we've broken this trend line, but we haven't really fully retested it. If we break through this, then the bond market is just basically begging for governments to intervene. It is a bit of a bond market protest at the moment. Again, breaking that level there is pretty critical. Copper, on the other hand, is looking reasonably strong still. As I said, it's going to have some resistance, but in general, this is a reasonably strong looking chart. Decent breakout, maybe a down day to retest this break, and then more upside. Could even just trudge sideways and down for a little bit, just like oil did the other day, and then break out. Gold, interesting couple of vectors here. That's a pretty strong rejection off that value area high, actually. Decent volume, but not bigger than that red candle. Buyers might be getting a little exhausted here. So yeah, I think just need to wait to see which way it's going to go and break out of that wedge. Just looking if there's another trend line in there. Not really. Not that I'm interested in at the moment. Silver's having an okay time of it. Again, the wicks to the upside are a little concerning, but at this stage, it's looking okay to the upside. We are coming off bullish divergence on the stochastic momentum as well. US oil, interesting day there. I didn't expect it really to actually try and break above that trend line. I think that's quite strong for oil. Need to confirm that break, but in general, that's a pretty strong looking chart. BBWP is still accelerating to the upside, still in the bullish control zone. Oil looks like it wants more. Dixie actually looks like it may come down a little bit more. Probably recover this vector candle. That might let stocks at least go sideways rather than down. But at the moment, it's finding some support off this resistance level. So I think the only thing in favor of downside is that the stochastic momentum's come out of the bullish control zone. It's kind of recovered this red vector already, so it actually looks like upside is more likely just to get to that 110 level. And if we do that over the next couple of days, stock market comes down a little, down or sideways, we reject off that 110 level, then you'll probably see the stock market actually improving. Japanese yen still struggling. Most of the currencies are still struggling against it. Yeah, euro's not really making any new highs. Let's look at this here. Probably draw a pretty decent trend line through there. See the break failed there, but it's not a bad trend line to be looking at for breaks above that to see US dollar actually coming back. We are coming off bullish divergence on the stochastic momentum though, so it may actually push through from here. So yeah, the dollar, the forex markets are a little undecided at the moment. The interesting thing is we are coming off bullish divergence on the global liquidity read. And if I just look at it on this chart as well, interesting, what is that? Monthly pivots have seemingly changed. Anyway, I don't really trust them on this, but I went back and had a look at cyclic RSI versus this. I'll just get rid of that. Every time we've had a bullish divergence on the global liquidity read, it has found a bottom. Had it here. That was a pretty massive bottom there. We actually had it here as well. There was if you count this as a little bottom here, that was bullish divergence. But yeah, most of the way along, the bottoms have been signaled by a pretty major bullish divergence. That one, not necessarily. That one just bounced, but that was the COVID drop, I believe, as well. Yeah. So just something to keep in mind that It's not a bad level for global liquidity to come back in. And that's the strongest sign of any support we've got for global liquidity for ages. And off very low levels. I've never seen it. When I look back, it didn't come lower than that on the cyclic RSI. So it's a very, very low read. That's a bit of bullish sort of action there. Typically, this will lead markets. So again, we may still get a couple of days down, the rest of the week down even. But in general, if that keeps going up, then markets should eventually follow. A lot of these markets have pulled back into the pivots as well. So even like we go to Sol, so Sol's sitting right in the middle of the pivots. It's actually, that's a fairly bullish read on cyclic RSI as well. Typically, you might get a pullback here, but you'll typically get a bounce, and you'll get further upside. So, that I'm not calling this bull run over yet. I need to see more from what I'm seeing at the moment. But it's certainly looking a bit shaky with a lot of the alts just not finding new highs at all. We need to probably have a turnaround within these pivots somewhere. So XRP, for instance, around 2.2, it's going to be pretty critical. 2.18. If we can find some support relatively quickly, then you'll get some bullish divergences forming on the dailies. That should lead to more upside. A little bit sketchy on some of these alts, so like they're not looking great at all. So the question is, like, if we get a full 10% reset on NASDAQ, or not even NASDAQ, NASDAQ's already done bigger than that, the S&P 500, then the crypto market could find a deeper correction. There's still, 12 days before the inauguration, something like that. So 2 weeks, a lot can happen. But if that happens, like if Bitcoin sees a bigger pullback, it's almost going to look more like to me, it'll almost look like this sort of thing, and then we'll be looking for that secondary bounce. There isn't actually a lot of similarities between the previous bull run and this one when you look at it. We are breaking previous trends with Bitcoin. So anyone that's suggesting Bitcoin's going to do something because it did it last time, I just wouldn't listen to that. I'm just going off the price action now. But what I do kind of expect is, like, I actually think we're probably more in this region at the moment. And by that, I mean the volatility towards the top. So expect big swings in each direction. Because that tends to be what happens once you're reaching the end of a cycle. So, this top happened over 4 months. And I think we could probably get something similar. So we may get new all-time highs. It's just don't know how much higher they will get. I think until we see what Trump does with the US and with his Bitcoin reserve and stuff like that, we're not really going to know for sure. Just quickly looking at liquidity, this is a pretty major target here, and for Bitcoin to drop that hard, I would suggest that I don't think it's going to just go for the 94, 95 level over the next couple of days. I would suggest that at least 90K is a bit of a target. It's good to see that there is quite a bit above though, and lots of shorts came in. Like, that's the biggest probably bull sign there that we may actually go a bit higher, is there was tons of shorts came in yesterday at the highs. That's really the only thing that might attract price up from where we're at the moment. Have a quick look at ETFs. So ETFs have actually been having decent inflows. So that's what I'm looking at as being a bit of support for Bitcoin. So it's a tough market at the moment, really. But when we look at IBIT, IBIT actually had a pretty decent sell at the top there. We haven't had any buys yet. That sell came right at the end of the session as well. So maybe even after hours. These charts for IBIT and stuff are really handy if you're looking at sort of swing trading and trying to figure out what happens after a pump. If you see big trades coming through, then typically it'll be a reversal. So we just want to see someone starting to buy up in here somewhere. Coin. So coin actually seems to be getting a little bit of a bid at the lows here. It's a little concerning it's moved lower after that, but generally some interest at the lows here isn't a bad thing. So again, a little bit of mixed signals because it hasn't really happened on the regular Coinbase chart. It's only on the Coinbase longs. And it could be people taking profit from previous trades at much lower levels. But yeah, that's, we want to see some dark pool activity happening in these charts, I think, before we can really call this pullback over. Financial sector actually had a pretty massive sell. Like, it had a lot of clusters. It made the records in a number of different sections. So 5 largest trades by dollars, 5 rarest trade clusters. Oh, that was XLK. I'll have a look at that as well. Interesting that it's mainly occurring at the bottom. 50 largest trades and it's only pulled up 2. That's, yeah. Technology's an interesting one. What was it? So XLF, yeah, 5 largest trades by relative size. It made a couple of records. I think there was more actually. It was in one of these as well, but not anymore. So yeah, XLF, XLK getting some interesting trades on them. What we don't want to see is the financial sector breaking down below these levels after big trades, because that would suggest the overall market's probably going to come down a bit harder, because the financial sector's been slammed a bit lately. Pretty good topping signal there on the funding levels. Open interest is obviously dropping off, but surprisingly, it's not dropping off a hell of a lot. Now that could just be all the people taking shorts, but I actually expected that to drop off a little bit more. It does look like we're finding a bit of a base here. There was a big order that has been not filled yet. Where's the one filled? Booking. No, that's fine. It looks like it's picked up one of these big orders here anyway. Looks like a fairly big one. So yeah, bounce from here. You got all these orders coming in here. So something in the 99.5 to 100,000 again isn't a bad level. It's just looking at how hard it's come down. I'd kind of expect that to be a rejection level, but it should attract price. Put it that way. Let's go to super charts quickly. Okay, so CVD has fallen off a cliff, making new lows as well. That to me is a read that we are going much lower. Well, both much lower. I think we're going lower. Some pretty decent green coming through on the bid ask, so that should lead to us bouncing. Yeah, that's not a bad sign for your bounce, but again, whether it actually makes any new high from here, I'd be very surprised. Whoa, excuse me. So generally, down is more likely over the next couple of days. And yeah, I think it'll be down on the stock market as well. That's a massive engulfing vector candle on Nvidia. Like, holy shit, it's still going. Negative 6.15%. If that's not a bearish sign for the overall market, then I don't know what is. And yeah, that's not good. I would expect ASX 200 to follow to the downside. Yeah, it's not looking great. It's looking like we're going to have a couple of down weeks, to be honest, which probably going to see Bitcoin do the same. The fact that we didn't rotate in after that run up, we didn't really rotate in to the alts all that much. We had a couple of green days on some of the alts, but that was about it. ETH shorts are coming back. BTC shorts are dropping, but from an elevated level. Longs are increasing, which is good. That's what you want to see on a pullback. And obviously an update on the stable coins versus Bitcoin. Yeah, I think at this stage it looks like any sort of pumps will be met with selling. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go back to cash for a little while, because even if we do pump from here, like if we're breaking these levels again, then not really going to miss out on much, but you could potentially lose quite a bit of value in a run to the downside. So just from where we're at now, you could lose 10%, or for that bigger correction back into the 65 sort of area, another 20% off where we're at now. So I think at this stage, just based on if we close below this point of control, that's going to be a sign just to pull out of the market for a little bit, let the whole thing reset. Probably just before Trump comes in, that's probably going to be a decent time to buy. Like Bitcoin will probably run up the week before or so, depending on if Trump starts dropping hints about what he's going to do and stuff like that. That's probably when you're going to see markets and stuff actually pick up again. But at the moment, it's looking fairly bearish across the board, to be honest. XRP might just bull flag as well. Obviously, it's coming off a pretty extended run to the upside as well. So, I would suggest that's going to be something like a support target if it breaks this range. Like at the moment, XRP is probably going to range like that for a little bit. But yeah, some of these alts are not looking healthy at all. Even the AI ones, not looking great. Sui's probably one of the strongest out of all of them. Still, even stronger than Solana. It looks like a lot of people have actually transitioned from Solana and are starting to put money into Sui. I think it's going to be the winner for the layer ones this cycle. Yeah, a lot of the AI coins struggling a little bit. But they could just be bull flagging as well. Sort of not really breaking down, but they're not breaking to new highs either. I mean, downward trend on goat for sure. This one needed a little pullback. It's pretty overextended, but yeah, real world asset stuff is really struggling. That's a big move on Supra. Interesting that it got bought up off the bottom of this vector candle. I wouldn't pay too much attention to momentum and stuff here. It's too early, but further pullback and probably a bounce around the bottom of this wick would actually be quite a bullish point for Supra. Tricky to read, but the fact that there was plenty of support around that level is a good sign. Yeah, a lot of these are getting slammed. Fairly new coins. Lingo, yeah. Haven't actually engulfed that vector. It just looks like a vector recovery at this stage. But even gaming's just not getting the run that a lot of people expected. I think we've got to be careful of is with the .com bubble, it really burst because earnings weren't keeping up with the hype, and something in crypto that we really got to watch out for because, yeah, there's a lot of potential in a lot of these, but it takes 10, 15 years for markets to shift to something new. like the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, 2001, there weren't still that many people using the internet back then. Took a while before a lot of those companies actually became profitable. So it's still speculation, and unfortunately, there's just not as much liquidity floating around to really pump things. So that's what we're kind of fingers crossed for, that there's some sort of quantitative easing or stimulus that comes into the markets that basically gives people free money. That's what you're looking for. That's why 2021 was such a huge bull market, because there was just free money being pumped into the markets. People had more money than they knew what to do with. That just is not the case at the moment. That's why it might be Bitcoin gets the majority of the money that goes into crypto still, just because it's more of a store of value than the others, and it's got institutional interest. All right, that was a long one again. Sorry, but this is what I do in the mornings to try and figure out where the markets are going. So at the moment, it looks like more downside is likely across the board, really. I don't think there's going to be too many winners in the next couple of days. All right, catch you later.